George Takei was born in 1937 in the city of Los Angeles. He grew up there until 1942, when his family were ripped from their home and sent to one of the many internment camps that the U.S. government had set up for Japanese Americans during the Second World War. This is his story. I am your host. Many people of Japanese descent were already serving in the armed forces of the United States. They were loyal and brave soldiers fighting for a country that didn't seem to care that they existed. But public opinion turned, and the prejudice against Japanese people was overwhelming. And we see young George struggling with how can he reconcile his American identity with his Japanese heritage. But because of his appearance, because of what he looks like, he is judged as being more Japanese than American. When he was growing up, he saw the effects of this firsthand. He was bullied at school because of his heritage. He asks his father, "We were born in America. We speak English. We're Christians. Aren't we Americans?" His whole world was turned upside down, and instead of allowing himself to be defined by this experience, he created his own definition of what it meant to be Japanese American. He never let the racist bullies win. The artwork is stunning, and it captures the emotions of the characters perfectly. The writing is excellent. We feel every emotion that George feels. The ups, the downs, the anger, the confusion, the bravery. For example, George wants to be an American hero. He wants to join the military and defend his country. But his parents worry that he will be putting himself in danger. They want to protect their son. They don't want him to go off to war. This is a beautifully crafted story. His dad sadly replies, "You are an American, but in their eyes, you will always be a Japanese. If you did, please give us a thumbs up. It helps us out so much." Let me know what you thought about the book in the comments. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I would love to have you here. I'll see you next time. Bye. So it was really cool to learn more about the actor who played him, but I think that this book stands on its own. Even if you do want to know anything about George Takei, it's a great story and I think that everyone should read it. I knew that Japanese Americans were placed in internment camps, but I didn't know the full story. I didn't know the emotional toll that it took on families like George's. If so, I would love to hear your story. Also, if you have read They Called Us Enemy, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please share with us in the comments below. This is something that George has carried with him for the rest of his life. This is They Called Us Enemy, the story of George Takei, who is best known for his portrayal of Mr. Sulu on the original Star Trek series. It's a very fast-paced story. Even though this is a graphic novel, there's still a lot of action. I think that the author did a great job of keeping me engaged in the story. I wanted to keep reading to find out what happened next, which authorizes the military to establish military areas and to exclude people or groups of people from those areas if their presence is deemed harmful to the national defense. Within 3 months, nearly all of them were forced to sell their homes and businesses for a fraction of their value. And we get to see the turning points of his life where he grows and develops a sense of self, of identity, of justice. The second part of the book is titled And Still I Rise, and that's what George does. He rises above the hate. He joins the school boxing team and he learns to fight back. This was a huge moment for him, and it really helped to shape him into the man that we know today. Through all of this, his passion for theater continues to grow. At 16, he decided that he wanted to join the army and fight for his country, but he lied about his age and he enlisted under a false name. That way he could serve his country, but he could also continue to perform in plays while he was stationed overseas. The possessions that they could uncarry with them were either left behind for someone else to take or destroyed. There he attended an integrated school for the first time, and he had hoped for a fresh start. But once again, he found himself the victim of bullying. Once again, he was called slurs. Once again, he was beaten up. Families were torn apart as they loaded themselves into trucks and were driven to one of the tenant camps that had been set up across the country. FDR claimed that it was necessary to protect military installations and vital war industries from espionage and sabotage. But everyone knew that the real reason was racism. And the order specifically targeted people of Japanese ancestry. And that's certainly true for George, whose parents would hide his Japanese heritage so that he would not be bullied at school. But it's also true for thousands of other Japanese Americans living in the United States. Just because they were born here doesn't mean that they're treated like they belong here. In fact, the opposite is true. The book is co-written with Justin Eisner and Stephen Scott, adapted by Harmony, Beaton, and published by Top Shelf Productions. It won the Eisner Award for Best Reality-Based Graphic Novel and was nominated for a Harvey Award for Best Graphic Album of the Year. The first two chapters of They Called Us Enemy are entitled No Country for Japanese. In December 1941, following the attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. declared war on Japan. On February 19, 1942, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signs Executive Order 966. There were about 70,000 Japanese Americans living in California alone. The third chapter is called The Bird in the Tree. He is an American citizen. He loves his country. He believes in his country. After Executive Order 966 was signed, he was only 5 years old when his family was forced into an internment camp. This graphic novel tells the story of George from age 5 to 17. When he was 13, his family moved to New York City so that his dad could work on the railroad. But George refuses to be a victim. This is a powerful graphic novel. When I read this book, I felt like I was learning something new. Even though I knew a little bit about this part of history already, one of the things that I found most interesting about this book was reading about the different perspectives of the characters. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this book is the way that it was written. I'm a big fan of the Star Trek series, and I love Mr. Sulu. If you're looking for a book that'll make you think, that'll make you feel, that'll stay with you long after you finish reading it, then I highly recommend They Called Us Enemy. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever experienced racism or discrimination? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video.